Stop everything because the discussion around XRP as a bridge asset is heating up in ways mainstream media refuses to acknowledge. And if you think this is just another crypto buzzword, prepare for shock because the implications ripple far beyond retail trading into the corridors of power at BlackRock, JP Morgan, Fidelity, and even whispers from the IMF and BIS. And here's the extreme question. How often does a single digital asset gain simultaneous validation from global macro strategists, institutional positioning, cross-border payment systems, and regulatory nods while remaining largely under the radar of the masses? And the answer is almost never, which is why what you're about to hear could redefine your understanding of global liquidity and financial flows. And before we go deeper, do one thing: hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the insights you're about to receive are the kind of privileged intelligence mainstream channels will never cover. And as we break down why XRP is increasingly being recognized as a critical bridge in cross-border settlements, how institutions are quietly accumulating it, and why legal and operational developments are aligning perfectly, you'll see why this is far more than a narrative. It's a structural evolution in global finance. And every unusual transfer, liquidity corridor, and regulatory update matters, because the next hours could determine who gets positioned and who gets left asking WTF just happened as this story unfolds in real time, and this is your chance to understand it before the masses wake up. Now we dive into the data and authority that explain why XRP as a bridge asset is capturing serious attention, because the signals are concrete, multi-layered, and intentionally overlooked by mainstream channels, starting with on-chain analytics showing massive accumulation by wallets linked to major institutions, coordinated liquidity flows toward regulated cross-border corridors, and trading patterns mirroring Ripple's expansion into Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, signaling adoption acceleration even as headlines remain skeptical. And when you layer in ongoing SEC updates hinting at potential regulatory clarity, Ripple's operational readiness for large-scale institutional integration, and indirect nods from financial authorities like the IMF and BIS, a clear structural picture emerges that screams strategic intent, not hype. And here's the extreme question. How often does a single digital asset simultaneously attract regulatory scrutiny, institutional positioning, macro-level validation, and operational adoption in global banking corridors? And the answer is almost never, which is why the urgency is palpable, because those who can read the subtext now are already positioning while retail traders remain distracted by surface-level FUD. And every unusual transfer, legal nuance, and liquidity shift is a breadcrumb toward understanding the forces shaping this narrative. And ignoring these convergences now is like standing in the path of a storm while pretending the clouds aren't gathering. Now we reach the catalyst and the FUD defense, because this is where XRP as a bridge asset shifts from theory into actionable insight. And you need to understand why the waves of fear, uncertainty, and doubt swirling in the market are actually masking serious structural momentum, because every dip in XRP's price is met with strategic accumulation from wallets tied to top-tier institutions quietly positioning for what could be a seismic shift in global finance. And here's the extreme question. How often does an asset face public skepticism while simultaneously being reinforced by the world's most powerful financial actors, including BlackRock, JP Morgan, Fidelity, and even subtle signals from the IMF and BIS, and still function as a key bridge in cross-border settlements? And the answer is almost never, which is why this moment is explosive, because FUD is merely a smokescreen hiding serious structural alignment. And when you layer in Ripple's cross-border integrations, international adoption corridors, and potential regulatory clarity from SEC developments, you see a perfect storm forming. And yes, the timing is critical, because as institutional corridors expand and liquidity flows quietly under the radar while retail sentiment remains distracted, insiders gain an asymmetric advantage. And the urgency is real, because ignoring these catalysts is like standing on the edge of a tsunami while the waves are already gathering. And when the market reacts, it will do so not just in price, but in narrative, adoption, and global banking influence, creating an environment where understanding the subtext now provides a rare strategic edge that could pay off exponentially as XRP cements its role as a pivotal bridge asset. Now we arrive at the price justification and final warning, because this is where all the converging forces, the institutional accumulation, cross-border integrations, SEC developments, Ripple's operational readiness, and subtle nods from global financial authorities, combine to create a scenario that could drive dramatic and rapid market movement. And you need to understand why XRP's role as a bridge asset is not just theoretical, it is structural. Because when BlackRock, JP Morgan, Fidelity, and other major players quietly test tokenized settlement solutions and liquidity corridors, every court update, legal nuance, and operational expansion becomes a potential price driver. And here's the extreme question. How often does a crypto asset simultaneously align regulatory momentum, institutional positioning, global banking adoption, and macro-level endorsement to justify explosive price moves? And the answer is almost never, which is why this moment demands your full attention. Because every unusual transfer, liquidity shift, and headline mentioning Ripple or XRP adjacent initiatives is a breadcrumb pointing toward a possible market event, and the warning is urgent, because ignoring these convergences risks being left behind, while insiders capitalize on positioning and narrative. And the next hours are more than volatile. They are a test of who can read the subtext before it manifests in both price and global financial alignment. Because XRP's adoption, regulatory progress, institutional interest, and systemic relevance create a scenario where rapid shifts are not just possible, they are probable. And if you are not prepared, you may miss the magnitude of what is coming as these forces converge almost overnight to define the near-future trajectory of XRP. As we close this deep dive, it is critical to understand that XRP's recognition as a bridge asset is far more than narrative. It represents a convergence of institutional strategy, regulatory developments, and global banking infrastructure evolution, and mainstream media is completely missing the deeper signals because the alignment of Ripple's cross-border adoption, on-chain accumulation by major institutions, ongoing SEC developments, and subtle nods from financial authorities like the IMF and BIS, combined with strategic positioning by financial giants, creates a scenario that could trigger unprecedented market impact. And here's the final urgent question. Will you be prepared, informed, and strategically positioned? Or will you watch from the sidelines as insiders quietly capitalize because the opportunity is immediate? The risks are real, and the potential for rapid, almost shocking shifts is higher than anything seen in recent months. And every hour, every liquidity. Move, and every headline matters because XRP is no longer just a digital asset. It is a statement, a movement, and potentially a cornerstone in the next generation of global financial infrastructure. And those who recognize the signals now, interpret the subtext, and act with precision are the ones who will navigate the coming hours successfully, while the rest scramble to catch up, left asking WTF just happened as history unfolds right before their eyes.